Okay, guys, this is Dave's LFC Chats. Hit the like, hit the share, give us a sub, show us your love. We'll get that on a t-shirt soon. But I've got the legend in the house. It's James Pearce from The Athletic. James, it's been a while. Welcome.
Hi, Dave. Yeah, good to be back. How are you?
Well, I'm not too bad, but I had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of personal stuff going on in the background and loads of stuff. I'm coming out the other end of the tunnel, and hopefully going forward, all will be well. But it's just great to have you on talking about the Reds, the chat about LFC, which both the team we both love. And before we get into the Liverpool team at the moment, there's a lot of stuff happening in the last few weeks. Of course, the big bombshell. I don't know where you were for this JFK moment, but I was in work. I was getting text messages, phone messages, looking at the video. I actually thought it was going to be a Klopp extension when I seen him sitting down on the chair at AXA. What was your thoughts on Klopp leaving? I mean, wow, what a bombshell.
Yeah, it was a bombshell. Yeah, I was sat at the dining room table thinking that it was going to be quite a straightforward Friday at the time. I must admit, I thought it was a little bit strange earlier in the week when I heard that Klopp was going to be doing his press conference before, I think it was the Norwich game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was doing it
on the Thursday, didn't he? On the Thursday.
Yeah. And you think, well, that's a bit odd. So I started asking a few people and said, why? And the replies I got was just, he's he's got something else on Friday. That he just wanted to do it on Thursday. So you kind of take it at face value and all the rest of it. But yeah, so completely a bolt out the blue. I think I got a message off someone about a minute, I think, before it dropped on social media, just to say, I hope you're ready for what's about to come your way, because
Jesus Christ,
it was then
world news, basically.
Yeah, massive. Because I think we all knew the day would come eventually, but I don't think anyone thought it would come quite so soon, especially I think with, maybe a year ago when, things were in a mess and the wheels had come off, and you could see that, it was clearly getting to him as it would get to anyone when, it's the one punishing setback after another. If it had been then, it probably would have been more understandable. But I think this time around, with the team absolutely flying, challenging on all fronts, my initial reaction was, why? Like, why would you walk away from this? It felt almost like having done the hard yards in terms of like rebuilding, before last summer, rebuilding the forward line, obviously last summer, rebuilding the midfield. You look at, the young players that are coming through. But again, the more people I spoke to, the more people said, well, actually, that is why he's made the decision, because he wanted, to make this call when the club was in a good place, and he felt that he'd be handing it over to someone to say, okay, go on, you go and continue that work. And, all the tools are there for this club to continue to be successful. It doesn't have to be this big drop off just because Klopp's going. So it's still, it was quite surreal, really, that day, kind of working till the early hours of the following morning, obviously with the time difference in America, trying to speak to people over there, and and it was quite emotional as well, because I think you suddenly think, wow, this is really coming to an end. And when you think where Liverpool were at before this guy took over, and where they're at now, I mean, the job he's done is just, absolutely, phenomenal.
I mean, it was emotional. It actually was emotional. It felt like a bereavement. I mean, it felt like a bereavement of a fella that you knew, even though I've never met him. I'm sure you've met him a few times, but I've never met him. And he's the type of person, I'm sure world fans, the millions of Liverpool fans, think they know him. That type of way. He's the type of person, you'd love a hug off him, the famous Klopp hug. And it's like a bereavement. And my mum passed away, actually. My mum passed away the week in the 20th of October, 2015. He'd just come in a week or two beforehand, and my mum had been sick. So my head was somewhere else when Klopp came in, even though I knew he was coming in, type of thing, And that whole, 8 years, nearly 9 years now, coming into this year, but yeah, almost like a bereavement. And it's got to be a sad day when he does actually go. I know it's a a long and winding road, but he is going to go. But as you said, he's leaving the club in a fantastic position foundationally. I did hear today or yesterday, Liverpool posted record profits. I don't know whether you've seen that. The money side of it, a lot of fans don't want to know, but it's very important for the club and the brand going forward. But foundation-wise, the club stadium now, 60,000+. The youth, let's talk about the kids. New kids on the block. The youth, Darren's with a double last night. Kumas, you've been following the youth team as well. I mean, you can go through Bobby Clark, McConnell. Look at Connor Bradley. I mean, Trent's going to find it hard to get back into the team. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's unprecedented the way in which, game after game, week after week, these young players have stepped up and grasped the opportunities that they've been given. You think, someone like Jarrell Kwanzaa doesn't really even get talked about as a youngster now, yet, go back 6 months and
I didn't even mention Kwanzaa there.
people would have laughed, wouldn't they? If you'd said that Jarrell Kwanzaa would play 25+ games this season, you'd say, what are you on about? He might get a chance in one of the early rounds of the domestic cups, but that'll be it. Yeah. Now, the biggest compliment you could pay Kwanzaa is when Konate is rested. There's no sense of oh my God, how are we going to cope without Konate? It's it's fine. We've got Kwanzaa, even though Joel Matip obviously suffered that horrendous season-ending ACL injury, and then you lose Trent, and it's let's not forget Trent Alexander-Arnold have been so integral to Liverpool's upturn in fortunes, going back to April of last year when the system was changed and he started playing that hybrid role, and there was that sense of, well, how can we cope without Trent, because he's been the catalyst behind this upturn in form. And then you see Connor Bradley, and it's oh wow, this kid looks like he's played 200 games already. He's got everything you'd want in a right back in terms of physicality, defensive qualities, attacking spark and desire and creativity. So and then in recent weeks, you've seen Bobby Clark, go from strength to strength. James McConnell, someone who go back to last summer, and he was looked upon as an attacking midfielder that had half a chance. And then, of course, with the situation with Fabinho and Henderson both leaving, and Liverpool not immediately filling that kind of number 6 gap, it was well, we need someone to play as the number 6. So it was well, we'll work with this kid and try and teach him that role. And he's taken to it like an absolute duck to water. And then, you kind of think, well, that's surely as good as it's going to get. Yet then you see Jayden Danns, one of the most extraordinary weeks that any young player could ever have experienced in the history of elite football, to go from nowhere to then coming off the bench for a couple of minutes for his Premier League debut against Luton, to then play over half an hour at Wembley, help Liverpool win a major trophy, and then score twice in front of the Kop the other night. You just think, if someone presented you with that script, you'd be like, well, that's, you couldn't possibly, write.
Ryan Rover stuff.
Yeah. And then, it carries on, doesn't it? Lewis Kumas, becoming the 4th youngest player ever to score on his debut. Trey Onyoni, who every time I've watched him play for the youth team this
16,
season,
not even 17 yet.
Yeah. I think I saw us. I think he was born around the same time, wasn't he? The Liverpool signed Fernando Torres, and it's oh my God,
you're making me feel old now, James.
It's crazy. But that's it's not a fluke either. It's not a one-off.
No.
It's not.
Caden Gordon. We didn't even mention the likes of Caden Gordon and stuff, who was the next big thing. And with a really bad injury, but there's other ones there too. You know what I mean? I know Ben Doak wasn't an academy player, but Ben Doak is another young player that got injured. He's injured at the moment. The amount of young players we have is it's ridiculous. And as you said, the quality. But who deserves the credit here? Okay, Klopp, the system, the thing. Alex Inglethorpe. Who else that we might know about? You follow a lot of the youth. Who would you think would be behind the scenes there, getting stuck in that? Teaches them English and does all this stuff. Who else deserves a bit of credit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. It is such a collective effort. It would be, Alex Inglethorpe would tell you himself that he wouldn't want to take all the credit for these kids, because I think it said a lot about Alex Inglethorpe, the fact that when Liverpool were playing Southampton in the FA Cup, he was actually stood out in the rain at Kirkby, watching an under-15s game, because he felt that was probably the priority for him. It wasn't. He could easily have been, I think a lot of academy directors would have been, well, I want to be at Anfield to see the boys under the bright lights, in front of millions, in front of 60,000 in the ground. But he was like, well, no, I'm, in terms of my day-to-day role, it's probably more
bread and butter.
Yeah, the bread and butter. Yeah. So then you look, Barry Lutus, the under-21s coach, Mark Bridge-Wilkinson, both massively highly respected, impressive coaches that have done brilliantly in terms of developing talent, and of course beneath them there's such a vast network, as you said, from the people that the guys that come in from overseas in terms of helping them settle, the other guys who come from closer to home, and the homegrown talent in terms of just the education that they get, because Alex Inglethorpe has always been so hot on humility and keeping people grounded, and whether that's going and helping out at homeless shelters and soup kitchens, and ensuring that these kids know that when they turn 17, 18, no flash cars are accepted at the academy. No one wants to see anyone walking around with a $5,000 Rolex on their arm. And you could say these are like little things, but all those little things build into a really big picture. And then of course, when these kids get the opportunity to go up and train with the first team, they've got role models that you couldn't wish for anything better than learning every day from how does Virgil van Dijk prepare, how does Mohamed
Mo Salah, different level
of these guys who have been at the top level week in, week out for so long. I mean, if you can't learn from them, then you're not going to learn from anyone, are you? And then at the top of it all, of course, is Klopp, who I think a lot of elite managers kind of pay lip service to youth development and pathways for kids, but when push comes to shove, would probably rather actually turn to the more experienced player and play safe. Never been the Klopp way. He's incredibly bold and brave and courageous in terms of the way he approaches things. And that was why, people can say about the Carabao Cup final at Wembley, well, it was forced on him because of the injuries. Well, it was to a degree in terms of naming that squad, because they were the only players available to him. But it wasn't forced on him to take off Gakpo and McAllister and Robertson and people like this, because I think a lot of other managers would have thought, well, I'd rather have a tiring, fatigued senior pro out there than throw on a kid who's never, ever experienced anything like this. But he's just created an environment where these kids feel like they've got the belief to go out and flourish. And tactically, it helps them, the fact that they have this setup at Liverpool where the 21s and the 18s play the same way. So it's the same brand of football. It's the same system. They know that, the brand of football they're walking into. So that helps as well in terms of course, there's a leap in quality and intensity and tempo when they go up to the first team. But in terms of the technical side of things and what's asked of them, it's actually quite similar to what they've been used to.
Yeah, no, it is brilliant. And I mean, the future's red. I mean, when you look at it, the players we have, we've a young senior squad, if you know what I mean. Okay, there's a few lads in their 30s and stuff like that, but in early 20s, mid 20s and stuff. So, I mean, going forward, the big question is, look at Klopp. We know he's leaving. It's sad to even talk about him leaving, but the reality is he's gone on the summer. Question is who comes in. I know Xabi Alonso, ex-Liverpool player, Spanish international, doing wonders at Bayer Leverkusen, of course. I think he was a 33 unbeaten, something like that, some record in the Bundesliga. If he comes in, I mean, I think he'd be a perfect fit. But it is hard. Like, it's not a guarantee everything's just going to flow, that type of way. But out of all the people being talked about, do you think he's the most likely?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think he is. He's the outstanding candidate for me, because I think he ticks all the boxes. I think you look at his body of work and you look at the job he's done at Leverkusen, with remarkable when he walked in there. I think, what was it, October 2022, when they were 17th, I think, in the Bundesliga, and now to be, was it 8 points clear at the top, and, demolished Bayern recently. It's almost going to take a bit of an implosion for them not to win the title. So that's a hell of an achievement. And I know people will say, well, it's one season, it's not a big body of work, but I don't go along with that. I just think he's doing it here and now. Like, why do you need to? I don't need to see any more from Xabi Alonso to know that he's got it. Also, you look at who he played under his careers. He's playing so many elite managers, and anyone that's ever met Xabi Alonso, and I was fortunate enough to interview him quite a few times when he was at Liverpool as a player. He was always one that you thought, yeah, he'll be a manager one day. Like a real deep thinker, tactician, studied the game, intelligent, thoughtful.
And he was a good player himself.
Yeah. And of course, and I think it helps as well that he has that emotional attachment with the club because his son was born in the city. He obviously, he didn't really want to leave. I think he felt like, obviously there was that situation as a player when Liverpool had tried to sign Gareth Barry the year before, and he felt that, that was, not a respectful way that they'd gone about things. And of course, Real Madrid presents itself, and he goes off there. But his love for Liverpool never dimmed. I know that from having interviewed him. I went to Bayern Munich when he was in his last season as a player and spent some time with him there. And he was so positive about Liverpool as a club and Liverpool as a city, and loving the people. And
that's the key. I think you've just hit it there, the nail on the head. I think you're bringing in a manager that knows the history, the heritage, the fan base, the club itself is huge. I think it's huge.
Yeah. Because I think Liverpool, whether I know, people from rival clubs scoff at this, but I do think
we are different. We are different.
I think just in terms of the way that Liverpool fans and the people regard managers as well. You almost expect them to be more than a football manager. You're a figurehead. Yeah. You're an ambassador. You're expected to fight the corner, and that's why someone like Roy Hodgson never got it. He was never a Liverpool manager. It was completely alien to him. He didn't understand the area. He didn't understand the people. That's why he put his foot in it every time he spoke publicly. It felt like we were in the torrid. But Alonso gets it, and so yeah. I mean, well, we know obviously he's not short of offers because Bayern Munich have made no secret the fact they would love him to take over from Thomas Tuchel at the end of the season. But personally, I'd be really surprised if he chose Bayern ahead of Liverpool, and not because of any rose-tinted glasses, but just because I think when you take a step back and look at it, you think, well, hang on a minute. If you win the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen, where's the real, what is really kind of firing you up about the prospect of taking over at Bayern? Because you win the league at Bayern and everyone shrugged their shoulders and says, well, you should do that.
It's a bit like PSG, really, isn't it? Similar.
Yeah. I don't
to win it, really,
And I think also when you look at Alonso's managerial stroke coaching career so far, he's actually been very clever in terms of he had lots of offers, he's turned down lots of things. He went back to Sociedad. He started off in the youth ranks. It was he's very meticulous in terms of no, I'm not just gonna that might be a bigger, better job now, but that might not be the right one for me now. And I think he's kind of plotted that pathway. So yeah, it's going to be intriguing because I think on the one hand, I think he would only be human if he thought, do I really want to be the guy to follow in the footsteps of Jurgen Klopp? Because, following on from an icon is incredibly difficult. But the flip side of that is you look at the squad you'd be inheriting. And it's how could you turn that down? How could you? It's not like there's a lot of surgery to be done on that squad. Yeah, there's some big decisions on the horizon, not least you've got Salah and Alexander-Arnold coming into the last year of their contracts this summer. We don't know what's going to happen with the Saudi pursuit of Salah. We don't know even whether he would want that to happen. But there could be a scenario where you're having to replace someone like that, but it's not like whoever comes in isn't going to need to sign 5 or 6 players, because that's just not what you're inheriting.
Yeah. No, but look, it's a huge job still. I mean, Liverpool will have expectations and stuff. I hope we get him. I think he's the man for the job. Let's see what happens. Obviously, we can't control it, but let's hope he does come in. Another man who might come back, and I don't think he will, Michael Edwards. A lot of talk about him coming back. I can't see him. I think he has his own company now. He's probably more relaxed. A lot of pressure at Liverpool. Can you see that one happen? Edwards coming back?
I'd be really surprised. Yeah. I think you can.
I'd love him back. But I'd just be surprised.
Yeah, I agree. And you can never say never in football, because we've been here before where you kind of think, well, that's not going to happen, and something happens that defies logic. But I think common sense, when you look at it, you think, well, we know he turned down a possible return about a month ago, just after Klopp had made his public announcement that he was leaving at the end of the season, and of course, even then, if he wanted to, he could have come back as sporting director with real wide-ranging powers, because I think post-Klopp, there was always going to be a bit of a reset in terms of the dynamic between the sporting director and the manager, because over the course of Klopp's reign, he's become more influential and powerful, as you'd expect. So yeah, I just don't really understand. Like, I can understand why FSG would really want Edwards back. Of course you can, because the deals he did in terms of recruiting that first iconic team of the Klopp era, not just that, but the fees he got for, unwanted players like Saka.
Solanke was unbelievable.
Yeah, Jordan, Brad Smith. The list goes on and on. So you think, of course you would want him back. But yeah, up to this point, my information has been that Michael Edwards is very happy doing what he's doing, likes being outside that pressure cooker of day-to-day involvement, likes having more family time. He's got a business with Ian Graham, which is doing very well for itself. So yeah, I think it would take a real big change of heart for that situation to change. And of course, Liverpool, time is cracking on. So Liverpool can't hang around now, on the off chance that there's a change of heart, because they really need that new sporting director in place, because, the club have made it pretty clear that they want the sporting director in place before they recruit a manager, because they want the sporting director to have a role in that process of bringing in the manager.
Yeah, look, sadly, it sounds to be true, but as you say, you never say never. Who knows? It's possible, but unlikely. Last minute or two, James, we wrap it up. Just going forward, end of the season, finish it on a high. Carabao Cup in the trophy cabinet. Still in the FA Cup, a tough quarterfinal at Old Trafford. I know United aren't particularly great at the moment, but it's always tough there. Europa League finals in Dublin, my hometown. I'm hoping and dreaming that'd be beautiful. That'd be like a home game, James. And of course, top of the league, big game against Forest at the weekend. The games are coming thick and fast. I know the kids have been doing unbelievable, crazy stuff, but we do need senior players back. We do need the likes of Darwin, Salah, maybe Slobosai, maybe Trent, Curtis Jones back soon. The more of them we have, I think the more chance we have of winning one or two of the big ones.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, because as incredible as the last week has been with what happened at Wembley and then midweek against Southampton, I think we all know that it's not sustainable, because obviously the caliber of the opposition is gonna be cranked up with, even Forest away on the weekend is a tricky thing.
That's a tough one, yeah.
When, obviously the dynamic at the bottom has changed a little bit with Everton getting 4 points back following their appeal, and then you've got that trip to the Czech Republic, and that game over there 3 days before Manchester City at Anfield. So it's like you can't roll into those games just with the squad that we saw against Southampton in the FA Cup. That isn't going to work.
No chance.
Thankfully, there is a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, Robertson was only ill the other night. He should come back into contention. As the three you mentioned there, Núñez, Salah, Szoboszlai, they're the kind of three I think that have got like in the next week or so we should see them. And then, yeah, the others, unfortunately, are probably going to be kind of post international break. So you just think you'd like to think that injection of quality provided by Salah, Nunez, Szoboszlai will help in terms of it. Feels at the minute a bit like kind of everything is geared towards getting them three up to speed for Man City, because I think you can go to Forest and probably grind it out. You can go to Sparta away next week and get a result that, regardless, you'd be confident of getting the job done at Anfield in the second leg. But of course, that March the 10th date against City is absolutely huge, because yes, there's a different dynamic to the title race this time around because it's 3 rather than 2, and Arsenal, the fact that they're still there means you have to respect their challenge. But I think we all know that that game against City could prove to be absolutely decisive, just because it could. For a start, it's likely to be. It might not be, because obviously they could meet in the FA Cup, but it's likely to be the last kind of Klopp Guardiola battle of this era in English football. And
sadly, yeah.
And it's those games haven't disappointed very often over the years. So yeah, it's really exciting, the fact that to have got that first trophy in the bag and still have 3 to go for. You Crazy. Just want this era to end on a high, because you do look at the back end of the season and you think, what is it? Wolves at home on the final day of the Premier League. That's Klopp's Anfield farewell. You could have a midweek trip to Dublin in the Europa League final, and then you could have the FA Cup final at Wembley. I mean, if Coles did weeks in May, that would definitely be one.
I mean, May could be one crazy month. And even talking about quadruples is crazy. We've done it before. 2 years ago, we were unlucky, I thought. But who knows? James, look, who knows? Thank you very much for coming on. Hope the next time I talk to you, we are quadruple holders. Who knows? But James Pearce from The Athletic, thank you very much for popping on. Stay safe. Talk soon. Cheers.
Cheers, Dave.
Cheers.